it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Time for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. Coming to you live and direct from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, where the skies are clear and blue. Mount Hood is beckoning in the distance. As we sit here on the 26th floor of the Ardea condominium towers on the south waterfront of the Willamette River. So glad to have you here. Boy, it's been a heck of a weekend, huh? Politics are getting crazy. Oh, and it's only just begun. We got this little respite here in August. Usually August is the slow month in politics, right? Usually not a whole lot happens in August. But already, you've got, oh man, Donald Trump just can't help himself, can he? This thing with Khizr Khan, the dad who spoke at the convention about his son, the Captain Khan. Gotta love that name. Captain Khan, who was killed in action. The mom standing there, she's a Gold Star mother. And Trump just couldn't help himself, could he? Couldn't help himself. It's like Khizr Khan gives this great speech about Donald Trump. I will loan you my copy of the Constitution. It was wonderful, right? And Trump comes back on it with, looks like his mom wasn't allowed to speak, trying to throw shade at Islam, being, patriarchal and that kind of crap, right? Like, it's just shocking. It's like, wow. You have to you have to write algorithms to be that tone deaf. You'd have to have special computer research. I couldn't even try to be that tone deaf. That's amazing. But yeah, we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about politics in this hour too. And here's my compromise with the listeners out there, because I know some of you are pissed at me. I know you are. I don't blame you. I understand why you're pissed. But here's my compromise, is that I'll try and keep last rant notwithstanding. But to be fair, last rant was about I-502. But I will try to keep the politics in hour 2. That's going to be my compromise. If you want the weed show, because I get comments on my Facebook page too. Go back to talking about weed. Go back to talking about cannabis. It's like, okay. So that'll be my compromise. Hour 1, we'll try to keep it 95% about marijuana. I'm not going to go 100%, folks. Sorry. But we'll keep it mostly about weed in hour 1. But this hour 2, this is going to be Toker Talk Radio, folks. And one of the things I've always said about Toker Talk Radio is it's talk radio for tokers. It's not necessarily talk radio about toking. We can talk about toke and toke while we talk. And we're going to talk about what's going on in the world. What things look like from the perspective of the pot smoker. I know we don't have our phone line up right now. We're going to get that moving forward. Sometime this month, we'll get that taken care of. Because I do want to resuscitate hour 2 as being a talk radio hour. So we can talk about politics. We can talk about culture, whatever we want to talk about. And it will be the perspective of tokers. That's going to be my goal for this show. So, being that we're in the middle of a hugely important U.S. presidential election, I might talk about the presidential election some. So when we come back, I want to go more into it, and on more of a meta level, though. More of the level of disagree with me all you like. You can disagree with me all you like, but don't impugn how I got to my decisions. Try and respect that I'm not duped by anybody. I'm not fooled. I'm not naive. This ain't my first rodeo, folks. I've gone through a very exhaustive and contemplative process to get to my decision, like I always do. So at least give me that respect. All right, we'll be right back just after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
While the feds and state are doing their dance, you still need to transact business and manage your cash. Go professional and let your customers pay with PayQuick. They pay you and they earn rewards points. PayQuick connects to your bank account for free and secures all of your transactions. And with PayQuick, you can pay your producers and processors for free. Plus, it pays to have it because it makes depositing your cash safe and so easy. No cops, no crooks, just compliance and comfort, knowing you have your cannabis business in check with PayQuick. PayQuick, the safe and easy way to pay. PayQuick.com.
I'm Radical Russ from the Russ Belville Show.
Senator Mark Mattson of Utah. Mark, welcome to the show.
Everybody kind of turns a blind eye. They obviously have to go to some other state.
Representative Lou Fredericks.
We're going to get something on the order of nonviolent possession offenses.
State Representative Kathy Tilton.
Where does the government personally use these commercial uses?
It's the Russ Belville Show, the NPR of POT, weekdays live at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, exclusively on CannabisRadio.com.
This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 9 after the hour. And following up on my rant, and if you missed the first hour, talked about how the thought processes I had to go through to end up supporting I-502. And it was tough because I had staked out a position that I was against 502. I'd already staked out positions that I was vehemently against per se DUIDs and very much in favor of home grow. But then overcame that to eventually support I-502. And it cost me friendships, and it cost me standing in my career, and it was hard. It was a very difficult thing for me to have to do. Well, likewise, this has been very difficult for me to get past my Bernie or bust stance and switch to supporting Hillary Clinton. And jump right past Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, any of that stuff, and jump right to Hillary Clinton. And I hope my listeners and readers understand that, and it's partially my fault. I wrote this piece in Huffington Post, and I said, President Obama cured this Bernie or buster, which leaves the impression that I was completely Bernie or bust until I saw President Obama and his magical oration, hypnotize me. I'll be hypnotized. No, I'm sorry I made that implication in the title. It was because it was just after a speech, and clickbait, looking for getting hits, really. Because it's not the way it happened. This has been happening since early June, since it was approaching the California primary and looking increasingly like whether it's fair or not, Bernie Sanders was going to get screwed out of the nomination. For this whole time, 7 weeks or so, my mind has been churning on this, thinking about this. And understand, the position I staked on Bernie or Bust was a much more visible position than my stands on 5 nanogram or no home grow. The piece I wrote on Huffington Post, the thing, I don't vote for Republicans. I came up with my list of 25 things I hate about Hillary Clinton on it, and another, few thousand words after that justifying, why I would never support her, never vote for Hillary Clinton. She's evil, right? Very well-received piece. Hundreds of thousands of shares. Probably the most shared thing I've written, I'd imagine. It got me interviews in the British press. I had the UK Independent calling me. I had numerous news outlets calling me. I got quoted around the country, around the world on this. So I'd staked out a pretty damn solid position at that point as being a Bernie or Bust guy. Compounded by the fact that I am your stereotypical cisgendered heterosexual white male, Mr. Privileged Decathlon here. So I'd already stuck myself in that spot and took heat for being a Bernie bro and took heat from lots of people after the primaries were over and all that, but stuck with it publicly for that point. But as I was there, after the California primary, my mind starts working on this stuff, starts thinking about it, starts working through all the scenarios. And as I was getting attacked, because I was getting attacked, I was getting the Bernie bro attacks, I was getting the how could you let Trump attacks, Trumpocalypse attacks, I'll call them. I was getting them all. And you know me, I look shit up. I'm the kind of guy that I will dig in. I would rather be strongly wrong than weakly right, So I started doing my due diligence. Like, all right, fuckers, I'll show you. Tell me that I'm a privileged this. Tell me that I'm a helping Trump that. Tell me that. I'll show you. So I started researching, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write this cool ass essay. I'm going to go back and find these historical examples that prove my point, that the only way you can shift and move the political party is by rebelling against it and forcing it to have to tack back your way. I'll go find the historical examples for that. And then I'll go back and I'll find some statistics and I'll look back at the previous Republican administrations and prove that, hey, we're demonizing about how bad it could be, but how bad was it really? And show, how the Democrats were just as bad on these other things. I'll get that all stacked up. I'll have hyperlinks on this fucker. It will just be ironclad, bulletproof, Bernie or Bust. And then I found I couldn't do it. I found I could not come up with the scenario that got me from a Trump administration to what I wanted better than I could get there with a Hillary Clinton administration to what I wanted. I found I couldn't come up with the plausible scenario by which the Libertarian or Green Party possibly wins the presidency. Couldn't find a historical analog that's even close. The closest things I found were places where a third party candidate siphoned up off enough votes from the majority party that the minority party was able to win. Every time. Every time. The 2000 election. You get the guy who won less popular votes winning the election. The 1992 election, Ross Perot siphons enough off George W. Bush that Clinton gets in with a 43% plurality. 57% of the country didn't want that president. I can look back to Wallace, back into 72, 68, I guess it was, where again, Nixon gets in with 47%. Most of the country did not want Nixon. I can take it back to the 1800s, if you like. I can take it. And what I found as I started researching the history of the presidency and the politics of America is that it's not that we wanted a two-party system. It's that the rules we have in play guarantee a two-party system. At first, there was no parties. at first there was George Washington. There was George Washington, and we were all part of the American Party. And George Washington won the first 2 elections. But right from that point, there began a division in America between Federalists, which was John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, these guys that thought there ought to be a strong central government. And then you had the Democratic Republicans, which were Thomas Jefferson. And those guys that thought, no, we ought to have, states, limited federal government, states ought to be, basically running the show. And from that point on, we got one Federalist president, John Adams, number 3. And then the next 5 or 7, I think it's like the next 7 elections went to the Democratic Republicans. The Democratic Republicans became so powerful a political party, the Federalists faded away. And that the factions then became in between amongst the Democratic Republicans of the time. Southern Democratic Republicans, Northern Democratic Republicans, Eastern Democratic Republicans, Western Democratic Republicans, but they're all Democratic Republicans. So much so that in a few of those elections, it was only Democratic Republicans that were running, or Democratic Republican who ran unopposed. No, can you imagine a presidential election where the president was running unopposed? We had a couple of those. And so what happened? The Democratic Republicans eventually, once they became so big, they split into 2 halves. Andrew Jackson, 1828, takes the Democrats with him. They become the Democrats. And the new party on the other side forms and becomes the Whigs. 3 parties didn't form, 4 parties didn't form, 2 major parties formed, Democrats and Whigs. Democrats won most of those elections, the next 7 or so, with 2 Whigs in between. And then we get up to the point where we get Abraham Lincoln. Now, leading up 1852 and 1856, there are 2 presidential elections during which the parties morphed. The Whigs faded away. And then you ended up with Democrats and Republicans. And then the Democrats, because of slavery, started splitting into Northern and Southern Democrats. And that split between the Democrats, who were the majority party, remember, they'd won like the last 7 elections or so. The split between the Democrats is what allowed Lincoln to win the election of 1860. And then from that point, Republicans were presidents for like the next 5, 6 elections. And from that point on, we never get any stretch of administrations that go any more than about 4 terms. And in the last modern era, my lifetime, never longer than 3 terms. Reagan, Bush, those 3 terms, one party was in charge. So the things I learned from doing this research was that third parties always cause the second party to win. All third parties do is hurt the first party. Number 2, that new parties don't form until the first party splits. Has to become 2 separate parties, but not a separate party outside, but from within. It splits from within. And when it splits from within, it cedes power over to the other party for 5 or 6 elections. Because both tiny little parties, in this metaphor, the example would be the weakened Democrats and the newly resurgent Greens. In that scenario, there's 5 or 6 elections for the other party to keep winning because it's all solidified. It's all that side. It's all the righties on that side voting Republican. While the Greens and the Dems, either the Dems fade away to the point where the Greens can be the big party, or the Greens fade away where the Dems can be the big party. But it takes 3, 4, 5 elections before that happens. So I tried. I really did. I didn't want to have to reverse my stance on burning or bust after being quoted in the British media and elsewhere. I didn't want to be coming back to my fans. Freaking Mark Emery is all up in my shit now, and I love Mark Emery. I didn't want to have to do that, but when I found I was wrong, when I found I was basing my arguments in emotion and if only and magic bullet thinking, when I found that the consequences of what I was arguing for were going to set back all the things I believed in far more.
Well, Lottie frickin' God!
Sometimes Lieber Mater's just so perfect, isn't she? When I found I was in the wrong and my advocacy could cause terrible things to happen, not just within my sphere of the marijuana community, but within so many other spheres that I care about, I could not change my position. All right, happy 420, everyone.
We have your smoking section right here. This is the Cannabis Radio Network. Thousands of cannabis professionals convene this August in Portland, Oregon, to the city responsible for $500 million in cannabis commerce. The Portland Expo Center hosts Indo Expo, August 6th and 7th. Indo Expo has seed to sale covered all weekend long, with educational seminars and over 250 exhibitors. Lights, nutrients, trimmers, extractors, greenhouses, cutting-edge grow gear, genetics, smoking accessories, and more. Free admission for buyers, store owners, and MJ industry professionals. Visit www.indoexpo.com.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every day. Medical marijuana is my last resort, and it helps me when all other drugs have failed. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I beat China all the time.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy?
This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour. And a couple other points that I failed to get into the rant today, talking about I-502. You know, I made the point about how one of the important things about I-502 was its timing, that it was, you know, would be the first marijuana legalization, along with Colorado. That had a lot to do with my decision. If I-502 were being run today in, say, let me pick a state that's a pretty good marijuana state, New York. I don't know if New York's a good example. Rhode Island. Let's pick Rhode Island. Pretty friendly state. Vermont. Pretty friendly state for marijuana. If one of those states were proposing I-502 right now in their election, a pretty progressive marijuana state, I might be persuaded to be against it for it having its 5 nanograms and its per se DUID. Because at this point, right, where we've got 4 legal states and the past 10 marijuana legalization polls coming up as support, you know, majority support nationally, I could probably be swayed into voting against it at this point because of the context. We already got 4 legal states, and the momentum's on our side, and it's pretty likely a Vermont or a Rhode Island could put something together in 2018 or 2020 and get legalization. I might come over to that. It'd be an easier argument now than obviously it was in 2012 when it's the first state and you've got to start somewhere, right? And if we were talking about voting for an I-502 in Vermont or Rhode Island in 2020, after we've got 9 legal states, I would definitely be against it. Because we'd have 9 states where only one of them has per se and no home grow, and the rest of it, well, wait a minute, the Nevada has no home grow if it's got a halo. Anyway, let's not make this too complex. The point being, context matters. Context matters a lot. So when we're talking about Hillary Clinton running for president, she's the first woman to be nominated. And while that's just symbolic, it's incredibly important symbolism, especially in contrast to the opposite of that. Donald Trump is the opposite of the first woman president. He's the first white male chauvinist president. Overtly, let's say. Of course, we go back to the 1800s, obviously. Different story. Modern times, let's say. Got to be careful with my historical analogies. But anyway, this election in the eyes of the world and in the hearts of Americans, and as far as proclaiming who we are as a people, comes down to a competent, lifelong public servant and the first female nominated by a major party versus an idiot, blowhard, narcissist, sociopath who's a proven business failure at everything but reality TV. When it comes to success, Tila Tequila and Donald Trump succeeded at the same thing. The Situation and Snooki succeeded at the same thing Donald Trump was successful at. Reality show. And what kind of message does that send to the world? What kind of statement does that make? What mark does that set in history? That we as a generation, we as an electorate would have to try to justify and explain for the rest of our lives. That the rest of the world would look at America and go, oh, so you picked the fascist clown over the first woman. Boy, how far you've come. And there's also somewhat of a symbolism of not only being the first woman president, but following the first black president. Kind of like how it was important both Colorado and Washington managed to pass. We are in a large scale, if you step back and look, large scale view of humanity. We're talking about generational swings of a kind of a cultural and social pendulum, right? And if you think about that swing from Ronald Reagan to Bill Clinton, a hard swing to the right. No on drugs, ignoring AIDS, all that. And with Clinton, a slight swing back. There was some good things in Bill Clinton's administration, right? We started swinging back for things like Americans with Disabilities Act, but I'll agree, didn't swing far enough. And then we get George W. Bush, and it swings even farther right than Ronald Reagan, for God's sake. Oh my God, I lived through Reagan. I didn't think that was going to be possible. But yeah, swung even farther right. And so we get Obama in office. And Obama had a little swing back to the left, but not much, but some. We got Obamacare, we got Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, we got a peace, a nuclear agreement with Iran, we got, some of the economy responded. At least we weren't going to go swirling into the toilet like we were under Bush. Yeah, I know it didn't go far enough for working people and didn't do enough, and he's still spying and drone bombing and all that stuff. It's all awful, yeah, but at least we were headed back toward the left a little, weren't we? So now, after swinging back a little left, could we maybe elect someone who swings back a little left, even a little more? Or do we give it to Trump and keep swinging it farther right? We're getting into the territory on the right where Nazis live, man, where Aryan nations live. White supremacists like this guy. They think he's their voice. I don't want to swing that direction, even for 4 years. It'd be 4 years too many. And I'll get people that come back on me with this. They're like, oh, you're just arguing out of fear. I won't vote out of fear. That's fear-based voting. That's fear-based tactics. So what if it is? There are some things people should rightfully be fearful of. And the rise of right-wing demagoguery in the United States of America is definitely worth being fearful of. I saw a meme going through on Facebook the other day, and it said, white guy, well, I don't know. I don't know if Trump would be so bad or if Clinton would be so bad. What do you think? And then it says, woman, Trump, gay man, Trump, Muslim, Trump, immigrant, Trump, whatever the old one is, Trump, right? All the responses are Trump. And then white guy, well, I don't know. It still doesn't quite seem clear to me. It's like, come on. Think about this. Think deeply about this. Now, there is a point to the argument of strategic voting. And so I've got two levels of thought on this. One level of thought is, whatever you're doing, tell me you're not voting for Trump. I can respect you and our disagreement if you will tell me you're not voting for Trump. If you're voting for Trump, we got an issue. In fact, I got a friend on my Facebook page, guy from my hometown, known him since I was a kid, who's a progressive. He often calls me out on being too conservative on things. He's a real progressive guy. Total Bernie Sanders supporter in Idaho who tells me he's voting for Trump. Because fuck the DNC, we're going to burn it all down. We're going to show them how dare they cheat us out of our vote, those assholes. And we've got a real problem. I've got a real problem with this friend, and I'm calling him out on it. And it's going to continue. So as long as you're telling me you're not voting for Trump, we can work with it. We can have a discussion. If you're voting for Trump, if you're purposefully trying to give this country President Trump, then fuck you. But if you're not voting for Trump, we got room to talk. So I got friends out there that tell me I can't vote for Hillary. I just cannot do it. Morally speaking, I cannot do it. And to me, it sounds like I just cannot vote for I-502. I just cannot do it. I will never support anything that institutes a 5 nanogram per se DUID. That's evil. That's wrong. That's junk science. I will never vote for it. That's what it sounds like to me now. And I know because I was one of the guys saying it. Remember, I struck out that I set that position for myself since February for months. There's no way I could never vote for Hillary Clinton. I won't vote for Trump, but I will never vote for Hillary Clinton because she's too far below my standards. Okay, so let's work that out. And I'll give you the too long don't read on it. The too long don't read on it is you know where it goes. Trump or Clinton will be president. Gary Johnson's not going to be president. Jill Stein's not going to be president. They're not going to be president. And you can pretend, but if Johnson got into the debates, if only Johnson got into the debates, if only thinking, he would convince enough people to move over, magic bullet thinking, and then they'd win. Gary Johnson would win. Would he? Would Gary Johnson win? Have you worked out the math on that? Because you can go to sites like 270towin.com, 270towin.com, 270 to win. And they've got these little interactive maps. And you can click on the states and you can change them colors and set the electoral college. And you can go look at where the historical patterns are and where the voting demographics are. Now, one of the fantasies that I get from the third party people is the fantasy. I saw this in a pie chart, came across Facebook, and it showed the one slice, the red slice for the Republicans, right? Here's the Republicans and it's like 28%. And I don't know, I don't have the numbers exactly from the chart because I don't have it in front of me. So I'm going off of numbers from Gallup. This is the latest Gallup poll. It says 28% of Americans identify themselves as Republican. So they get your red 28% slice. Then there's a blue slice, Democrats, and it's 28% as well. So you get that blue slice. And then, 28, that's 56, right? Then you got the other slice, the 44% over there, the bigger of the three slices, biggest of the three slices, colored green, that says independents, right? 44%. And then within the Democratic slice, that 28% slice of Democrats, there's another sub-slice within that slice that represents the 42% of the vote that Bernie Sanders got in the Democratic primary. 42% of 28% works out to 12%. So there's a little 12% slice there, Bernie voters. And the gist of the chart was that if the 44% independent and the 12% Bernie were added together, that's 56%, and they'd win. And again, that's that same magical thinking. If only every one of our Facebook supporters collected one signature sheet with 10 signatures, we'd make the ballot. If only, because your if only is depending on all the independents. And remember, independents aren't a party. Independents largely vote Republican or Democrat. That same Gallup that asked if you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, then asked which way do you lean for the independents, because there's not an independent candidate to vote for. They have to pick one, right? Which way do you lean? It works out 43% Democrat, 43% Republican. So 86% of the votes are in the Democratic Republican pool, and 14% of the votes are in the third party other write-in pool, 14%. So realistically, no, you're not starting off with the 44% of independents. You're starting off with the 14%. So that 14%, you've got to somehow convince people who believe in shit that Bernie Sanders believes in. You got to convince people that believe in Bernie Sanders' agenda to join with those other side toward the Republican side of the people who agree more with Republicans typically, and moderates. So you're going to have to build yourself a 54% slice that consists of hardcore, purity-minded Bernie or bust progressives and the moderate center independents that are sitting there, and all of the 14% that vote third party or other, and the other half of the independents that tend to go Republican. You got to come up with a party that attracts all those people. And there has to be only one of those other parties, because if there's a second, like a Gary Johnson on the other side, pulling those Republican votes, then what you get are two little third parties and a weakened second party. Because you took those 12% of Bernie voters out of that Democratic slice and just made the Republican slice the biggest slice. That's what got me to change my mind, people. The more I kept trying to defend my emotional stand based on my ideological purity, the more I found myself sounding like a true legalizer with if-onlys and magical bullets. And, well, this'll teach them and we'll get something better next time. Yeah, remember what teaching the oligarchs and the monopolists about Prop 19 got them? 6 more years of prohibition. Do you remember what teaching all of the no on issue 3 people in Ohio, you know, who said we couldn't have 10 gross. Remember what shooting that taught Ohio? Taught their legislature to come up with a really shitty medical marijuana program and forestall any legalization progress there for a long time. So I tried to defend it. And I'm willing to listen to it. Now, I'm willing to listen to the arguments back at me. Obviously, I've shown I can change my mind. Obviously, I've shown that given enough research and time, historical analogs and statistical data, I will come to what I believe is a reasoned conclusion. I hope you respect me enough to understand that I don't come to these decisions lightly, that I don't just, Obama said pretty words, so I'm going to switch. No, no, I thought long and hard about this stuff. And if you believe that I do, and if you believe that I come here every day to this show, looking shit up, doing my due diligence and my research on the marijuana issue, and even being honest about our issue when it doesn't always suit us, you know, admitting that, yeah, not all use is medical. You can overdab, you can overdo it. If you trust me on that level, please trust me that I'm not just scared or naive or, you know, flip-floppy, that I really have good reasons for doing this and I want to help you understand them. All right, we'll talk about strategic voting in the next segment. Like, if you're in Idaho, fuck it, vote for who you want to. We'll talk about that when we come back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late. Cash?
Sorry.
I don't carry around cash, and I don't want to use the ATM and pay surcharges.
You don't need to carry cash. Haven't you heard about PayQuick?
Okay, tell me about PayQuick.
It's the safe and easy way to pay. It works just like your debit card to securely pay for your purchase, and it gives you rewards points every time you use it.
Nice.
PayQuick, the safe and easy way to pay. PayQuick.com.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, CANNA Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the hosts of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals, or at least they pay me to say that. A public service message from CannabisRadio.com and the Russ Belville Show.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPAs offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 43 after the hour. Quick reminder, Stoner Jesus coming up at the top of the hour, live from Stoner Heaven here on CannabisRadio.com. And this weekend, I will be at the Indo Expo here in Portland, Oregon at the Expo Center as a part of Cannabis Radio's huge broadcast booth. We got a 20 by 30 booth, folks. Biggest booth I've ever been a part of at any of these cannabis events in my 10 years. 30-foot booth. 10 years, Russ. In my 10 years as a cannabis activist, this will be my the biggest show. So I'm really looking forward to it this weekend. Hope to see some of you there at the Indo Expo at the Portland Expo Center. Following weekend, I will be in Boise, Idaho, August 14th, deep in the heart of Red State, Idaho, one of the 8 remaining full prohibition states. I'll be in Boise, Idaho for the Boise Hemp Fest. I'll be speaking 2 or 3 times, I believe, so hope to see you there. And then the following weekend, the third weekend, the 25th anniversary Seattle Hemp Fest. I'll be speaking there as well, and hope to see you there. So, all right, let's get back to political discussion here. And a couple of thoughts. One is the thought about strategic voting. Because I got to admit that in 2000, I voted for Ralph Nader. And the reason I did is because I lived in Idaho at the time, and it doesn't matter who I voted for in Idaho. George W. Bush was going to win Idaho by 65% or more. There was just no shot in hell Ralph Nader's going to win. So I voted for Ralph Nader because I was kind of radical at that time, thinking Bush and Gore, they're just two sides of the same coin. It's the same corporate influences. They're both bought by Wall Street and big oil and the military industrial complex. I had that same stance. There's just no Bernie. It was just Ralph Nader to go for, right? And he got 2.7% of the vote. And part of why I supported Ralph Nader back in that day is because I got so singularly focused on the corruption in politics, the big money, the corporate influence. They're all corporate, the corruption in politics. Bush and Gore, they're exactly the same on that issue. I put these blinders on and didn't pay much heed to the fact that, well, they are quite different on the global climate change issue. They are quite different on, and then start, listing a whole bunch of issues. Al Gore wasn't going to create an office of faith-based initiatives, right? Al Gore wasn't going to let a whole bunch of black people drown in New Orleans, right? There's whole bunches of things you could, even before those things happened, where you could clearly see Al Gore was the qualified candidate, if boring, if wonky, a little boring and wonky. And yeah, he got some Wall Street on him. That's for sure, right? No doubt about that. Not perfect in any way, but clearly a better choice than George W. Bush was. Clearly. I mean, George W. was a man out of his depth. And this is a guy who'd been a governor, right? And even as a governor, we looked at him and went, yeah, he's kind of dumb. I don't know about this guy, right? So back then in 2000, I thought, yeah, but if we vote for Gore, all we're doing is showing the Democrats that we support what Bill Clinton's done with the crime bill and the Telco Act and all the terrible things the Democrats have done. And if we vote for Nader, that'll move the Democrats. It'll push them to the left. It'll force them to recalibrate because they'll have lost that election. And then they'll go look at those Nader votes and they'll go, well, wait a minute, look at those 2.7% Nader votes. And of course, you don't know what it is then, but millions of Nader votes, right? Well, obviously, we're not appealing enough to the left wing. And so what we've got to do is recalibrate and make sure we become more progressive for the next election so we can win. And so in 2004, the Democrats nominated John Kerry. Not John Edwards, who ran against him on a very much more to America's progressive type platform. Not any of the more, no, they went with the more conservative guy. Because the president who won in 2000 was able to push the country into a more conservative direction. And so the Democrats went that way, trying to win and get votes. That 2.7% of Nader votes didn't teach Democrats jack shit. And then where was Ralph Nader in 2004? Oh, he was not interested in running. He declined the Green nomination, didn't want to do that again. And the Greens got 0.7% of the vote. And George W. Bush won with a majority. He got the majority, though. He got over 50% of the popular vote that year. So it didn't look like that worked. So the one example I have in my own lifetime of when I felt that the two candidates were exactly alike and punishing the one candidate would show them didn't turn out that way. Didn't work out that way. And then when we finally got Democrats, we finally got Barack Obama. And believe me, I've been disappointed in Obama. He sold me a whole lot of hope and change in 2008 that I didn't see come through. But also, the country had swung so far to the right that he was hamstrung. Even when he had a majority in the Senate and the Congress, which he had his first 2 years, so many of those Democrats had moved so far right in some of their rural districts to try to keep up with getting swamped by Republicans that they couldn't extend themselves to things like single-payer health care. Barney Frank was on Real Time the other day talking about we just didn't have the votes. We couldn't do it. Even when we had the majority, we couldn't have the votes. Why? Because these are long-term swings. Long-term swings in how the country feels about things and how they look at America and what it is. Now, in the past 8 years, America has gone from being George W. Bush's America that hated gay people and passed 30 out of 30 anti-gay initiatives through the state legislatures to a country under Obama that has awoken to gay marriage being fine, supporting gay people, openly championing them, to the point where even the Republicans at the Republican convention were applauding LGBT positive lines. That's the kind of swings a president can help. Just in their rhetoric, just in their attitude, just in who they're appointing to the most minute of offices that we don't even ever think of. But there is an argument to be made. Let me get to the strategic voting argument. So I voted for Nader in 2000, and it was a safe thing for me to do because it couldn't have possibly tipped the scales of the election. So some of you out there are thinking, well, fuck the Democrats. I live in California. And there's no way Hillary's going to lose California. So I can vote for the Green Party. I can vote for Jill Stein because that'll help her get them up to the 5% they need to get matching funds to move for the next election, blah, blah, blah. I thought along these same lines, folks. This is another one of the arguments I kept trying to find my ironclad defense of and could not find it. But this was my thought. I thought the same thing, man. I thought, well, if you live in California or you live in, fucking Kansas or Massachusetts, any of these states that are totally safe, then go ahead and vote your conscience and everything will be fine, right? And then I started looking at some of the polls. Like, I looked at the poll here in Oregon, and it was 43 Clinton, 40 Trump. And then a significant, like a 13% Johnson and a 3 or 6% Stein or something like that. It's like, holy shit, these people might actually turn Oregon into a red state. 3 points difference between Clinton and Trump in Oregon. That's some scary shit, people. So I'm a little less sanguine on the idea of how many safe states there are. Maybe California is safe. Maybe Massachusetts is safe for the Democrats. Maybe, an Arkansas or a Kansas is safe for the Republicans. And you can make that electoral, calculation in your head. My vote's not going to hurt Clinton from beating Trump. And please, I do hope you at least, let me not divert yet. So this idea that you'll cast this strategic vote, right? The idea that, okay, if you live in a swing state, if you live in Ohio or Pennsylvania or something like that, Florida, vote. I'll hold my nose and vote for Clinton just so that Trump doesn't win. But I'm going to tell people that live in these other states that are safe to go ahead and vote your conscience, vote for Johnson, vote for Stein. Here's my problem with that thinking. A president, when they're elected, sets the tone for the country, sets the agenda, kind of sets our vision. So Hillary Clinton, should she win, is someone whose vision is kind of rightward. I've made many, many points about it. Even her logo has an arrow pointing to the right. Okay, so that's her natural inclination. If she gets into office with only a plurality where she's got like a 43, like her husband did when Ross Perot got 19% of the vote. Bill Clinton got in with 43%. What direction did Bill Clinton move when he had that plurality? He was forced to govern as a much more centrist than maybe he would have been with a majority. And when the question being posed on the international stage is pick the first woman or pick the racist demagogue, I want the racist demagogue to lose as badly as possible. Because it's not Trump that's the problem so much as it's Trump's followers and the movement that could be birthed by this. That's the problem, is that there's 13 million Republican voters out there who took a look at Donald Trump and said, yep, that guy should be president. I don't want those people thinking they have any shot at anything or any sort of levers or any political power or any ear listening to their demands in Washington and filling all the cabinet positions from, Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense, Justice, Interior, Agriculture, Health, Human Services, Transportation, Education, Energy, Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, all the open judgeships on the district courts, the open judgeships on the appeals courts, and the open justices on the Supreme Court. And it's not, people look at Merrick Garland and that one seat that has to be filled in the Supreme Court, or the possibility of 3 justices in their 80s in the first Trump term that might have to be filled, and don't even consider all of the federal positions, bureaucratic positions, and district courts and justices or judges, appeals court judges, that remain vacant, have been vacant throughout the Obama administration because the Republicans have obstructed him. We've got backlogs in our courts and in some of our departments because Republicans refused to seat any of his appointments. And so there's already a ton of empty spots out there. And you're going to let Trump get in and possibly fill all those? Do you know how many individual decisions get made that have to do with the with the marijuana industry that would be impacted by whoever runs the Financial Security Department or the FDIC or the EPA or the FDA or National Institutes of Drug Abuse or the Office of National Drug Control Policy or the DEA administrator or the head of the CDC or the head of the Department of Agriculture. I mean, all of these people, you know, I have someone on my chat that's saying, well, Trump says he'll let the states let the states legalize if they want to. Yeah, just like Obama said, we're not going to use federal resources to go after medical marijuana. And then the U.S. attorneys that were still in place who thought differently, even after given a memo that said knock that shit off, kept prosecuting people. The Kettle Falls Five. This is not a game. This is every level of the marijuana legalization movement, the financial ends, the tax ends, the agricultural ends, decisions on courts as to whether or not cannabis can be used as a religious sacrament, decisions on how importation of hemp seed from foreign countries ought to proceed. All of these things are affected by who the next president puts into all of those offices. All right, well, this is going to be a fun next few months, folks. And remember, if you only want the weed stuff, just listen to Hour 1. Hour 1's going to be 95% weed stuff. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it,